Hello, everyone, and welcome to another amazing PsyMood webinar. My name is Ross, your host as always. It's a pleasure to have you all with us again. Just want to let everyone know that if you have any questions during this podcast webinar for our panelists, please don't forget to use the Q&A and we can answer all of those at the end. We also will have a poll questionnaire that we want to kind of gauge how everyone is thinking so we can utilize that to discuss with our panelists as well. Today we have an amazing topic that's something that's really close to my heart, and two panelists that really are amazing is a word, but I think it's not big enough for these individuals, Pam and Joshua. And we're going to be talking about a mental health journey with children with disabilities, something that I think is a topic that we don't speak enough about. And I hope that this webinar session will enlighten a lot of people on a subject that is very important, especially now with ever-changing, the mental health journey that we're going on, and all of us since the pandemic and before that. So as you know, my name is Ross. I am a mental health consultant with PsyMood. I do the webinars and the podcasts. But outside of PsyMood, I work in the end-of-life care space as a hospice chaplain, end-of-life doula, and a researcher. So I am honored to be your host again. It sounds like a flight attendant a little bit. Nice to see all of you again. I want to introduce Pam and Joshua individually. Pam, if you don't mind, would you like to share a little bit about who you are, what you're doing, and Joshua will do the same for you. And then I want to really dive deep into this conversation based around mental health journey for children with disabilities, but the word resilience. I want to talk a lot about that too as well. So Pam, if you'd like to share about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Ross, and thanks, PsyMood, for having me tonight. I'm Pam Mason. First and foremost, I'm the mom of two young men with Usher syndrome, a rare genetic disorder that causes deaf blindness. I am the community manager for Everyday Heroes Kids, an online platform that connects families to comprehensive profiles of pediatric professionals across health, mental health, and education. I was a special education teacher for 25 years across Canada and the Dominican Republic. And the last 10 years or so, I've been working with several nonprofits and advocacy groups in the deafblind community.
Wow. Well, amazing. Thank you so much. And Joshua, a little bit about yourself, please.
My name is Joshua Dvorkin, and thank you so much, both of you. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. First and foremost, I'm Joshua. I'm a registered qualifying psychotherapist. I actually have my exam tomorrow, but I have been doing counseling and psychotherapy for about 5 years. My story started a little bit differently. When I was 29, I had a near-death experience where I fell, landed on my head and broke my neck and became a quadriplegic. I spent 6 months in hospital on a ventilator, gaining my strength back, and then another 6 months in rehabilitation. Since then, I spent 14 years doing post-secondary education, doing an undergraduate degree in journalism and psychology, and then a master's degree in psychology. And now I do groups with people with disabilities and also for people suffering with chronic illnesses. I work with people with anxiety and depression from those illnesses as well. And yeah, any questions you may have, I'm happy to answer.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Pam and Joshua, for that. And again, yes, if you have any questions, please don't be shy. Ask as many as you'd like. And if it's for an individual, just let me know which individual you'd like me to ask the question for. And we'll get to as many as humanly possible by the end of this webinar. So this topic is mental health journey for children with disabilities. And both of you have an amazing story of resilience. And whether it's being a parent or an individual that has gone through an experience, Joshua, like yourself, the word resilience is something that I feel is utilized in so many different ways, but having the ability to kind of pinpoint the meaning of resilience and the strength through that process. Pam, I would love to kind of go for you first and talk to us about your children with the Usher syndrome. And, did you find through this process that resiliency was something that you were trying to ingrain in them to say, like, this is something that we can do it together, kind of build them up. I know you do some wonderful writing, which I hope people get to witness, and the things that you do with, Everyday Hero Kids is amazing, and we'll get to that too as well. But as a mom, personally, because individuals might be listening who are parents of children with disabilities, what kind of process of resiliency were you trying to educate your two boys on when it came to their Usher syndrome?
Yes, thank you. I think when you first are told about a diagnosis when your children are quite young, it's hard to process, and you're trying to get through that information on your own, and then realize that this is information you have to impart to your children, and how to best do that is challenging. And I think from the time they were young, my husband and I felt strongly that they needed to know and understand what their disability was, the challenges they would face, the resilience they would need to advocate for themselves in all sorts of different situations. And it's really hard to know at that time if you're doing the right thing. And we believe that it would affect their esteem, their confidence, and how they approach the world. And recently, with my children being now not children, 17 and 20 years old, they're had the opportunity to answer different questions as they're a senior for scholarships or for university. And one of the questions was, for my youngest, what are you most proud of? And he said, I'm most proud of the way I was brought up to not be ashamed of my disability. And I go through life knowing that I may need to ask for help, but I'm okay with that. And that kind of gave me a sense of, whew, I think that we started the process right. There's still a long ways to go, but we feel like we have given them that resilience and that foundation to continue on for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, amazing. So I guess in a way it's preparation, getting them prepared for that resiliency and things that, may come down in the future. So I think that's really profound when we talk about preparation, especially in this ever-changing world that we live in, being prepared, having that kind of rescue kit in that kind of mental rescue kit of like, what can be prepared for, what can we have in our toolbox? Are we ready for whatever comes down the pipeline? So I think that's really key, especially as a parent. I am not a parent to a cat. I guess you could call myself a cat parent. Struggle enough, that's enough for me. But having that preparation is key. And also, which is amazing, I didn't know, with Usher syndrome, can you give us a brief description of what Usher syndrome is? Because I wasn't aware until we spoke on the podcast.
Certainly. As I mentioned, it's a genetic cause of deaf blindness, and there are 3 types. Type 1 is what my children have. So from birth, they are born profoundly deaf, and my children in particularly received cochlear implants when they were quite young. They have a condition called retinitis pigmentosa, which manifests in the first decade of life through night blindness, difficulties with contrast vision, and resulting in a tunneling of the vision. In the second decade, as my children were, they were classified as legally blind around 13 years of age. And now they probably have about 15% of their vision. And with type 1, it also has vestibular dysfunction with it, which means you're born without a balance system. So there are some gross motor difficulties as well. So really, it's a multisensory disability that affects each part and multiplies each on each other, and resulting in quite a significant disability and many sensory integration issues that need to be dealt with over time. So there's a multitude of therapies and resources and teachers and professionals that we've worked with over time.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that, because again, knowledge is key. The more we talk about it, the more we write about it, the more we discuss openly in a platform like we have now with this webinar and podcast, being able to share that story, because a lot of people potentially were unaware, but also maybe going through the same process as you are as a parent or as an individual. So speaking on their behalf in some cases is such a wonderful gift with technology. So I appreciate you doing that. Thank you very much, Pam. And Joshua, you and I talked on our podcast, which was amazing, and we used resilience as a kind of a foundation for our conversation. Now, in your story, what happened and what was going through you in resilience, can you give us a story about how you found resilience after your accident to where you are now, giving back to people, helping people, with disabilities and families? You took something like an accident of that stature and you turned it into a positive and hope for individuals. What was your take on resilience through that?
Well, I don't think I started maybe particularly resilient. I mean, it took obviously some time. It was a pretty swift kick in the butt, excuse the expression, but I think with time, I just started to see like glimmers of possibility and hope, and realize that I could do things that weren't maybe the things that I did before, that I wanted to do before, but there were new things that I could do, and I could see them through a different perspective than I saw before. Kind of many parts of my ego that I had kind of just melted away, and I was kind of left really vulnerable and kind of open, I guess you could say. And I just decided that that was going to be okay for me, and that I was okay with that. I thank God I had a great family who loved me and supported me, and I had a bunch of friends that left, a couple that stayed, who've been friends with me for like 20 years now. Well, longer than 20 years, but 20 years since my injury. So the resilience started, I guess. My favorite story is I was on a respirator, and they told me that I would never breathe on my own again. And I got the letterboard from the doctor, and I spelled out a 4-letter word, OFF, and so excuse my language. And I was like, no, I'll be off this in 10 days from today. And 10 days from that day, I was off the respirator, and I was breathing on my own. And they told me, I would never live on my own again. But 12 months later, a year after going to rehab, I was living at home again. And then 6 months after that, I was back in school. So, I just think through that whole process. My parents were like, come move home. And I was like, no, I don't want to move home, because if I move home with you, then I'm never going to develop a backbone. So I was already 29. I moved out on my own, and the rest is kind of history. And from that point, my education started, and helping other people kind of started as well. And that's kind of where the gifts began giving. And yeah.
Yeah. And gifts have begun giving, because I mean, our talk on the podcast was so inspiring. Same with Pam as well. It was, I left both podcasts just completely in awe, going like, there's so wonderful that there is people like yourselves out there that are helping. It's very inspiring to have that and be a part of that. And the one thing that stood out, Joshua, when you were saying you wrote that 4-letter word on the board, and saying like, I don't believe you, I'll show you. And that was creating that resilience. Like, I will breathe on my own. I will make this, and I will achieve something from this. I mean, that's the epitome of resilience. And did that come from the experience itself, or did you have that kind of like, no, I'm going to prove you wrong mentality in the past before your accident?
I wouldn't say I had it so much before my accident. I think it was primarily incubated by my accident for sure. Um, I had made the choice that I wanted to be around able-bodied people quite early because I wanted to show them that people with disabilities could do things just as well as they could, and if not, could do different things or things different ways even better. And I could maybe change people's attitudes, and um, I had a whole bunch of ideas. I still have a whole bunch of ideas, but
Good.
yeah, it's great. And that I think the fighting came from there, and all through school I was well, I was in journalism school. I was like fixing ramps and getting buttons put on, and um just doing things that could be helpful for everybody else, and then from journalism, I think I realized that the space I needed to be in was even a better space where I could help people, and that's why I became a psychotherapist. So.
May
Amazing.
I just add?
Please jump
Joshua,
on in anytime.
I just found, what really struck me, what he said was finding your path or finding new paths. And, that applies across all disabilities. And certainly for our children when they were young, we tried to give them lots of different paths and choices and activities. So when perhaps one wasn't maybe a good choice anymore, then they could move on to something else. So, they were both avid baseball players, and they loved baseball. And around 13, they had difficulty seeing the ball. And they decided that it was kind of dangerous at that point to continue playing as much as they loved the sport. But they'd also played soccer and golf, and they ski. So there was another activity for them to choose from. So rather than having the sadness of giving up one, which is not a bad thing, you can still feel that, but you're finding those paths and not, I guess, wallowing in that, space where you're feeling sorry for yourself. You're moving on to the next opportunity. And I think that's such an importance. Find those paths. It may not be the same one, but there is a path there for you.
It's that whole thing of, leaving your children where they're feeling like they're in control of their environment and they're in control of their life, right? Because then they feel like it's theirs, basically. Well, it is theirs, but people who are left feeling like the world is in control of their lives are the people who usually have a bit more difficulty. So,
and to use a little bit of disability humor, and I hope no one takes offense of this, but my oldest had a passion for airplanes from the moment he was very young. Airplane spotting, which I find the most boring activity in the whole world, but luckily my husband did not. He dreamt of being a pilot, and that's a conversation we had to have. The joke was, well, nobody really wants a blind pilot. What do you think your other opportunities would be? And he's currently at university studying aerospace engineering. He figured if he can't fly them, he's going to try to do something within that field. And there's nothing wrong with that, to have a little bit of humor in the sadness and then move on to what is realistic for your journey.
Absolutely. I think, in some cases, humor is really quite beneficial and healing mentality. Sometimes we need to just laugh. And I think, with the pandemic, sometimes we have to just find some humor in that. You have to find these kind of opportunities to say, hey, I didn't realize how much annoying this thing was that I now spend so much time with at home. I didn't realize how much I didn't like this kind of music until I had to listen to it over and over. So it's trying to find that, joy in some cases in hard times. And I always utilize this character mentality of like Disney. When you look into the darkness, there will always be a little character holding a lantern. And that that's kind of the guiding light. So there's always a little bit of light in even some of the darkest times. And, a big part of parenting, I think, Pam, as well, is giving your children a key, and they have to find which door it opens. You give them so many options to choose from, and they'll find the right one that suits them. And I think what you're doing is amazing. And as people who are listening, who individuals, maybe parents with children with disabilities, did you find it hard being a parent with children with disabilities, in that kind of schooling, with other families and parents? Did you find that you had to be a little bit more firm or more resilient in a way with people around you?
Yeah, it is quite a journey, and there's more challenging times than others, and you're always trying to put on a brave front, and you face the world with smiles and with them in tow. But privately, you're having your struggles and your tears for their the challenges they're facing, because you want life not to be so difficult for them sometimes. So you're constantly, you're the counselor, you're the teacher, you're helping the coach, everybody to understand how best to help them. Or, when you have an invisible disability, then to provide awareness to what the difficulties might be. And so, we've done that in several different ways, with having other parents to talk to who are along the same journey. And I think our goal, at this point now, with them being 20 and 17 years old, is to be there for other families who are going through those struggles and need to see somebody else like them. So yeah, you're a little bit of everything. And mental health is such an important part of the journey. They have seen professionals at different times in their lives from the time they were quite young, because I can't always be that person. I have to be mom and be that a safe place, or not always the person that says, okay, but what can we do to face this challenge? Sometimes maybe they just need for me to provide comfort as their mom. So we need those mental health professionals to talk to them along the way. And especially with COVID and the challenges that has faced, that our children face as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's absolutely true. And Joshua, if you had, please jump right in if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think through COVID, COVID has thrown everybody for an extra loop, as I was throwing my extra loop in there myself. For everybody, and I think especially for people with disabilities who are already might be or probably feeling isolated as it is, are stuck at home feeling even more isolated from everybody else, leading to more anxiety, more depression, feeling even more trapped. So can kind of be a vicious cycle for sure.
And yeah, I would say, and Joshua, in your line of work, have you found an increase of individuals since COVID coming in with anxiety, mental health issues? Have you noticed quite a large influx, with that since COVID?
I would say there's an increase of people who already have a history of mental health issues becoming worse with anxiety. And I would say there's a new suit of people coming in who have more anxiety based upon just the current pandemic itself with no other history. So definitely.
So these could have been hidden things that weren't really aware of it at the time, and then COVID kind of hit, and then all of a sudden there's this influx of like, wow, I really do need to talk to someone. So in some cases, it's kind of bringing a light to these hidden things, which in some cases there's a positive. You have to look at the positive in that is it's sharing with ourselves personally that we need to work on some things, and we wouldn't have known if we weren't isolated with ourselves in some cases.
I guess, in a sense, that's why, mindfulness or letting us sit by ourselves is kind of like mindfulness. It teaches us to become self-aware of what we're thinking, and, sitting alone sometimes is how we get to, sit with ourselves and feel the pain that we can be feeling, and recognize it not only within, our headspace, but also come back to the body and see what we're really feeling within our body as well. So
right. And Pam, I would like to ask you this question. I'll ask Joshua too as well, but why do you think mental health in regards to children with disabilities is not talked about more? Because throughout my research, you don't find a lot of discussions or open discussions that aren't via research papers, but strictly speaking about it, being a voice. Why do you think this is not something that's discussed more openly in society?
Well, I think, for many years, we didn't focus as much as we should have on early childhood needs across mental health, learning disabilities. We tended to look at them a little bit older, or we were looking at fixing things instead of talking about dealing with them. So, I think the shift has been more in that acceptance and understanding how you label yourself, how you think of yourself is really the first step. And that, which of course links to, mental health and those conversations and confidence and being able to talk to teachers. And I think we're at a place where we're asking, I think my sons always say, please ask me what I need instead of doing what you think I need. So we spent many, many years doing what we think children needed, whatever space that might be in. And over time, we're gradually realizing that they do know what they need, and we need to focus on that. And having good mental health helps that process from a very young age.
Yeah, I think it's, oh, go ahead, please, Josh, please.
I think it's true. People are always trying to follow through with, thinking what people with disabilities need, but it is very true. We do know what we need, so that's very interesting. I just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, I'd like to actually touch more on that, because I guess in a way, in some cases, especially with the mental health space and with the disability space, whether it's learning or physical disabilities, in some cases, we're relying on people to tell us what we need to do, but they may not have the experience. They may not have the knowledge. So they're speaking from, this is just sort of the generic way of answering a question, because this is sort of the norm, without really having that experience. And I think having discussions like this allows people in those situations or positions to say, hey, listen, we need to reevaluate. We're not really answering the right questions in the right way. We need to get experience, and not forcing to say, this is what you need, asking more. And I think that's, when I was younger, I was diagnosed with ADHD, learning disabilities. I had everything that you can think of. And I never really had an option of choosing the right path for myself. My mom at the time, this was a long time ago, and was given an option of either putting myself in special ed program or struggle. And obviously as a parent, my mom would, well, I don't want my son to struggle. I want him to have an opportunity to learn like everybody else. But I was never given the option of choosing what courses and what paths I wanted to take that I knew was best for me. I was told this is the best way for you. And as a child, you just go, oh, well, you're an adult. This is school. I assume that this is the correct path. But not having a voice, I think, is something that we need to bring more attention to, allowing those individuals to actually determine and speak and create paths for themselves. And there's no harm in having ideas for different paths, but allowing them to have their own hero journey. And that's that concept of a hero's journey. It's the character, and they choose the path that's best suited for them, and they learn as they go. And I think we need to do more with children and anybody with disabilities or mental health, is give them the option of making their own hero's journey.
And when you come from a place of providing accommodations or whatever you're using for accessibility, if you're coming from a place of helping, providing that access, giving equal access, that you're not trying to fix anyone, because the important part of that is they don't need to think that they're broken, that, it's okay to ask for those accommodations that will give you equal access. And we all need them for different parts in our life. We all have strengths and weaknesses. Some are more visible than others. And we just need to provide that. And then, of course, ask if those options are working for them.
And
Right.
all of us who are able-bodied are only temporarily able-bodied. We're all going to be in a body that's not as able as it is now, right?
Mhm.
So, I go to the grocery store, I have to ask people for things up high. It doesn't matter. I ask people for things all the time. But I think one of the things I just wanted to take a second and speak about, is I don't know if either of you saw on City TV the other day, there was a story by Cynthia Mulligan, and they were talking about people on ODSP and how in the last 27 years, ODSP has only gone up $230. Um, and I was thinking about people that can't afford, or children that can't afford to get the help that they need. And that's the money that they're receiving. That's not going to open any doors for any people. So, yeah, I just wanted to bring that awareness to that topic because
Mm.
I think everybody who can should, just be on top of our government to provide things for all children with disabilities and all people with disabilities. So,
Agreed. And this is a free, safe environment that we're speaking. So please feel free to share, because, the one thing that we pride ourselves with these webinars is giving a platform for those to speak. So I agree. And Pam, in your thought process, why do you think there's not more being done in regards to, the disability funds and the support? Why do we still have to struggle to get that support that's needed?
I think now as we see more youth speaking out and letting their voices be heard, I think that will be an important part of changing that. And again, to speak to what Joshua just said, understanding the supports that are needed, including disability funds. And it's spreading that compassion, and our youth are going to do that now in different ways, and not only because they need to know that other people understand their needs, but that the support is there for them, that they see a future. Ethan, my oldest son, had a dinner in the dark for his peers. They were 18 years old, and he invited them to our house, and we put glasses on them that mimicked his visual disability, and earplugs, and we turned down the lights, and we had them all serve themselves supper and eat and spend about 90 minutes together with the glasses and the earplugs. And when they were done, they said how exhausted they were. Like, they didn't understand how Ethan lived that way, his, every day, his whole life. They said, I understand why you're always asking who's in a room, please tell me, where's that voice coming from? That was their chance to get that compassion, that understanding that he was looking for, that they could really understand what his life was like. And when more of that happens, when more people are aware, then I think those are the kind of things that'll start to happen. But we need those opportunities. We need awareness. We need more youth in that space talking about their needs.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree. That is, I think, such a profound experience that you provided. That is brilliant.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
I've been to situations where, they've had people try to get in wheelchair basketball chairs and all of these different types of skill building activities, and people always comment on how much more difficult it is, and how amazing it is that people with disabilities can actually do the things they do.
Agreed. And I remember going to a restaurant in Toronto where it was in pitch black, and the waiters were visually impaired, legally blind or fully blind, and you had to allow them to guide you to your table and had to find the utensils, the food, the drinks. And afterwards, people utilize that as a way of just experiencing just something different. But I came out of that totally spellbound that the experience that I had, and it wasn't about the food, or it was about not being able to see, not being able to utilize my vision to see, like, oh, I dropped something, but I can't find it. It's a whole other perspective that you looked at. And I agree with Pam. I think we need to offer these experiences to other individuals, whether it's a family friend or a friend that goes to school, a child with disability, to experience that, because in some cases, experiencing those activities will put a new light on how we discuss it openly.
And
Friends.
Sorry.
No, go for it.
And I think the key is Ethan did not do this for his friends to feel sorry for him. He wanted them to understand, a little small portion of his life, and to have empathy and bring that to, their lives.
Agreed. Yeah. Joshua, go for it. I saw you.
I just think it's great for other people to bring them in. They can never quite understand, but I mean, you can bring them in almost as close as they can get to have an understanding, which I think is huge, right? Because nobody wants to be felt sorry for. Somebody just wants to feel a bit of kindness, right? And that's all it is.
Exactly. We all want to feel that we belong, and we all want to feel love and compassion and kindness, no matter what that is. And I think with the pandemic, it's shown the importance of that human connection, connection, whether it's spiritually, mentally, or physically, how much we missed it and how much we want more of it. And I think, everybody deserves to have that compassion and kindness shared. And in regards to the support for individuals with disabilities, whether it's mental health disabilities, learning disabilities, physical, emotional disabilities, we need to do more. And I think it's important that we speak about it, but I also think it's important for the youth to speak, because nowadays we get our information from them. Social media is the new news, FaceTime, webinars, podcasts, that's the new news. And Pam, like your children speaking, being vulnerable and open with what they're going through with their friends is another step forward in that hope for individuals in the future with disabilities, whatever they may be, to actually say, like, they did it, I can do it, we can do it, next generation can do it, and that ripple effect of like, we can. And did you find, Joshua, I want to ask you this, because something that we talked about too is mindfulness, is finding that kind of that happy place. Now, during the process from your accident to now, how do you find that happy place? What is your mindfulness? What do you do to find that place of peace during this journey?
Well, I mean, for my professional practice, I have like 45 minutes of silence. I practice every day. I really connect with my body, just to see how I'm settling, and I, pay kind attention to myself, and just sit back and pay attention and go through what's gone through the day. Just really send loving kindness to my body for 45 minutes, paying attention to where it's hurting, and, really feeling where pain is coming up for me, what emotions are coming up for me, but really not getting involved with, it's almost like being aware of things in a third person. So stepping outside of yourself and looking in from the outside. That's how I'll explain it, I guess. So that way you get a picture of what's going on, and you kind of have the ability to shift the way you're feeling, and follow through with things you're noticing with your body, things that you might not otherwise realize, because every day just so many things are going on that we don't really have the time anymore to just stop and take 45 minutes to just check in. Instead, most people are taking 45 minutes to check out,
right?
But the thing that we really want to do is not check out. We want to wake up. We want to wake up to how we are doing, you know.
And that's, it's sort of like your own spiritual mindful x-ray of yourself. You're kind of going out, looking around, going like, what kind of pinpoints that I need to focus on? Where's the pain, emotional? So kind of giving yourself a mindful scan, I guess I could say, which is,
Yeah.
I think for everyone is so important now more than ever, is to kind of do that scan of what needs to be kind of focused and pinpointed. Yeah.
Well, one of the meditations we do is called the body scan. So,
Okay, perfect.
yeah.
And so what is that in? So is that visually like by themselves, or are you helping them through that process of a body scan?
So when somebody's learning, it's like usually you'll practice together for a short time, and then somebody will go off, and after that, usually they develop their own practice. So, and then you can go to a retreat, which silent retreats last anywhere from 1 day to 10 days, longer.
I don't think I could even do 10 minutes. I've tried that once, even just for a day, and and no one was around, and I just couldn't help myself but say something. So it is important. Silence, and Thich Nhat Hanh, who is that amazing human being and spiritual teacher, silence is the most powerful thing in the world. And we don't realize it until we utilize it. And I think that's so true. And Pam, in with the work that you're doing and being a mom and everything that you're doing, what is your mindful practice? Like, what do you do to kind of ground yourself, bring yourself back? Is it a self body scan? What is your kind of happy moments for just you yourself?
Oh, well, just me. Well, my mindfulness is just when I need to step back and have time for myself, whether it's to go for a run or walk the dog and be outside. I like to go to the gym. So, that's part of my mindfulness. But the other part is connecting with other parents of children with Usher syndrome, because it's a safe place where you can say some of the things that you may not be able to say to friends or family members, or the frustrations that they might not understand. So those are the two safe places for me.
Fantastic. And do you have your, like, individually, do you do are you a meditation kind of individual? Are you scream into a pillow kind of person? What would you say is your personal individual thing?
Running really fast on a treadmill.
Perfect.
I've tried to meditate, I've tried to do yoga, and I know it's really good for me as I get older, and I really want to like it. But I struggle with it, but I have incorporated more of it into my routine, because I guess the one thing COVID did teach me is I did need a little more downtime. So,
Right.
you've got to find what works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever makes you happy, you can listen to other people's suggestions, but at the end, you decide. It's in your hands, right? Your mindfulness and happiness is in your hands in some cases. And so, Everyday Hero Kids, Pam, I would love to shine a light on this and what you guys do there. I mean, I could say what I think is the most amazing thing, but I know I wouldn't be able to do it justice. So can you let everybody know what is Everyday Hero Kids, and what do you guys specialize in and the benefits of it?
Well, the idea for Everyday Heroes Kids resulted in a friendship with myself and Tammany Petrie from 15 years ago, at the hospital for sick children in Toronto, when our oldest children were getting their second cochlear implants. And that friendship became a journey of each of us looking for professionals to work with our children for a variety of reasons. And the fatigue, the effort, to the phone calls, finding the professionals. We watched the struggles that both of us went through for our children, and had talked over the years of there must be an easier way. And because Joshua, I'm sure that medical fatigue is true. You just don't want to make one more call to one more professional. And then the guilt grabs a hold of you that you've let it go for so long. And then simple appointments are not made because you've had so many specialists to deal with. So we thought there's got to be one space where a parent could go and type in a professional or a keyword that they're looking for, and the professionals and organizations that you were looking for would be available right there on the screen. And my partner, Tammany Petrie, who founded Everyday Heroes Kids and has a brilliant mind in entrepreneurship, came up with the idea and created this platform that parents can go to and look for. You can type in Usher syndrome and find a physiotherapist who specializes in neurophysio that's needed for balance, or the speech therapist that specializes in auditory verbal therapy. Or if you're looking at ADHD, you're looking for a music therapist. So you would find all the professionals that you actually know that you're looking for, but also anything that you may not be looking for would come up. And in our conversations about this, one of them was mental health. Parents don't often think of that when in combination with all the other professionals. And we certainly realize that it's a lot. But the mental health professionals that maybe focus on the deaf and hard of hearing or autism, those specific professionals will come up. And just to make that process a lot easier on families, on caregivers, so they can focus on the well-being of the child and not the process of finding the information.
Wow. I mean, isn't that just amazing? I mean, to have that idea in your head from experience and then entrepreneurial spirit to just say, I'm going to do it. But it also shows that there is a need for that support, with children and individuals with disabilities. So I think it's very important to kind of point out that this is definitely a needed service to be able to help. And I think it's absolutely amazing. Now, is it you just contact an individual and then they book, or is there a membership, or how does it work when it comes to, say, if a parent or an individual is listening now going like, actually, I need that support. What are the steps that they need to do?
Well, professionals, it's free for all professionals. They can create a profile on Everyday Heroes Kids. There's a button on the upper right-hand corner to create that free profile. And it's easy, simply go through the steps, kind of like LinkedIn, and then it'll be forever in that space of Everyday Heroes Kids. And families can just go to the website and type in what they're looking for, and that information is available. We also have nonprofits who can create a profile for free. And for clinics, there is a fee for clinics, but if there's any clinics participating tonight, I think there is a promotional fee in the chat for creating a clinic profile as well. And perhaps we could put the website in the chat as well.
Yes, I believe.
Yeah,
I think we have the website. So anyone who's listening, if you're in the chat, you can see the Everyday Hero Kids website, the promotion that we're doing tonight, same with PsyMood as well. So that's all going to be shared there. So if you need to look at it, it's there. And so because PsyMood, we base our platform around helping those newcomers, people coming to the country who are unfamiliar with Canada, learning the language, but are also going through the process of mental health and struggling. So Joshua, I would love to get your insight of what kind of suggestions or thoughts you have for individuals that are coming to Canada that have children with disabilities. Like, they may be facing challenges, they come to Canada. What should, or how should they approach, learning about their disabilities and the mental health? Like, what would you say is the good process?
There's so many cultural differences when it comes to mental health, even just cultural differences, period. Some countries are very concerned about what things look like on a face front level, so they try to keep things hidden. I would just say, talk to somebody, make sure you talk to as many people as possible. there's going to be somebody that definitely understands. If you can contact me, if I could refer you to anybody in the right direction, there's never a fee for that. If you want to call and ask a question, there's never a fee for that. If I can help you in any way whatsoever, I can do that. Um, you know, there's always Google, which is sometimes can be your best friend at home when you're sitting at home and scared and you don't know who to reach out to. Um, there's places to call. You can call 311. These are just very simple starting places.
Mhm.
But I would definitely you could reach out to your children's doctor, who could put you in touch with a psychiatrist, because again, it's difficult because mental health isn't covered in Canada, which makes it, or in Ontario specifically, makes it a little bit harder, a little bit less accessible for more people. So just talk about it. Talk
Mhm.
about it, talk to your friends about it. Be open about it. Don't hide it. I think
Yeah, I
that's
think
the
that's
first thing.
very, yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's very important and very, very true is speaking,
yeah,
being open and honest. And, you know, I think that is such the most profound thing that we can do now in this society, in this world, is our voice. Our voice makes change. Our voice brings experience and knowledge and also growth. So I think, for any newcomers coming to the country, don't be afraid to speak. There is options, there's communities, there is organizations, there is projects there that would be very supportive in the field in helping even with your children with disabilities or individuals with disabilities. There is hope out there. And, Joshua's hope, Pamela's hope, Demania's hope, Everyday Kids Heroes is hope. And so I think that just shows, this webinar is showing that there is options and there is hope out there. And so I wanted to dive into some of the questions because they're coming in, and I think these are really great. And so I want to get both of your sides on this question. So the question is how do parents with children with disabilities that are facing mental health challenges and need support, how do you get them help? How do they know if their child is in need? Is it, Pam, as a parent, was it obvious that your children were struggling with anything, or how did you find a way to kind of allow them to be honest with you in regards to how they're feeling?
Well, I think that relates to what you were talking about. We all want a voice. And at different stages in our lives, we feel like that voice is silenced. And so, as parents for our children, we're trying to give them their voice. So I was just trying to provide whatever would help them find their voice. I was fortunate in that the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, and the cochlear implant program specifically, had a social worker attached to the program. So, I asked if my children could visit, because that was provided for us as parents. And I just felt organically that they needed somebody to talk to as well. No pressure. So, within the clinics that you go to, perhaps there's a social worker, someone they can talk to. And then I kind of let them, I'm laughing because my older son was a little more outgoing. So he's like wanting to talk. And my younger son was like, yeah, I'm good. Maybe once a month or maybe, less frequently. And that's still kind of true to this day. And I let them guide the process, and them choose, when would be a good time. Then occasionally I would bring it up. But there was no specific behavior or anything that concerned me at the time. I just thought it might be good to start it. So it became I hate using the word normalized, because that means like we feel like we have to normalize everything, but just became a natural part of our lives.
Right. And Joshua, please.
I think mental health is a need for everybody. I don't think like psychotherapy should just be for somebody who's got a mental illness, because I think sounding things off and sorting through things is necessary. personally and professionally, for everybody. So if something is different, or if something is not even different, if something's unique, you could call it unique, because we all have uniqueness. And so we can call it our superpower, whatever you want to call it, our differences. I think everybody who has something different should be given an opportunity or a voice to have that thing empower them, and not necessarily make them feel pathologized or so I think if mental health is offered in the proper way, which is kind of the way that you are highlighting, it's almost like it's not really anything. It doesn't have to be something that's been systemically seen as socially, however you would label it, but um and just seen as as normal. And who doesn't like having time from other people, just specifically for themselves? Everybody loves to talk about themselves, right? So
I think Joshua and Ross, what you mentioned before about being a safe place, I find that a safe place where I can actually say all the things that I'm thinking and don't get a chance to say, or let out, that I don't get a chance to let out. And I can start anew, yeah. And anybody.
and you're not going to get judged for it, right?
No.
Exactly,
No.
exactly.
No.
And I think that's key, because the one thing that I did know was when I was younger with my learning disabilities was the fear of stigmatizing, that fear of that label will journey with me for my whole life. And, and that it was that fear of never being strong enough to say anything because being judged was the biggest fear for me, of, being told at school that I wouldn't be able to accomplish anything. So that fear of saying to someone that I had a learning disability, I kept that in for so long because of that fear of being stigmatized and being judged for that, and not on my actual attributes and things that I enjoy. And so both of you, I would love to get your thoughts on this, and something that I've always thought should be already existent. But do you think schools should start implementing discussions and bringing awareness to mental health and to differences? Because we learn and teach about different things in this world, but shouldn't we utilize that same platform to be able to educate the youth and kids about mental health? And that if you're feeling down, that's okay. And if you're feeling different and you think different, that's okay too. Do you think this should be part of the curriculum at schools?
I certainly do. As an educator, you watched over the years where, physical health was more important, music education, the importance of that is more understood, but mental health is a part of that too. And almost, dare I say it, even more important, because if your mental health is not great, then, in what you call the core subjects, how can you bring everything to that you need to have there, so I think it's all important for the total education. Our emotional, our physical, and mental health are the three areas we should be addressing in everything.
So for me, it's like, definitely, I think that, if we don't have coming from a good mindset or with good attitude, I really think it prevents us from following through on things, especially if we don't have community as a part of that. So, being able to be happy, and get up and get dressed in the morning and do all these things, it's, you need to be in a good place. So if we're not in a good mental place, our hygiene is probably not going to be as well, and other things are going to start to fall through as well. So usually good mind, better body, I would tend to think so. But yeah, I think it takes more than one of those. I think all of the areas come into play, definitely.
Yeah, and I think, we emphasize so much on the education system about learning and getting people prepared for the future, but that should also be implemented in regards to mental health and, these situations, because when we educate the youth and educate individuals, excuse me, this will be able to create change. Knowledge is change. Knowledge has changed the world. We are learning from each other. And I think having these opportunities to be able to speak, but also implement this into curriculum at schools, I think is something that we should be doing. And if there's anybody in the government listening, please do this. I think that's highly recommended. We both will sign on the dotted lines. I think this is very much something that should be implemented. Another amazing question. We got some great questions. When and how old should a parent or caregiver teach a child with disabilities about mental awareness? That's a great question. Pam, I'll jump to you first.
Well, I think it's really all part of it as you're introducing, explaining, helping your child own, who they are, and that kind of addresses the question. So I think we did it as young. We just started talking about it like it was, an everyday thing, and this is what life was. So it's just about providing all the information, from a young age, whether it's the physical therapist or the counselor. That's just, there are things that you need and there for you when necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Josh, I'll pass that to you as well.
Yeah, I think, you just want to make everything seem normal, right? You don't want to make it seem like you're adding all of these extra pieces in, because then you almost make somebody feel like they're not normal. Just like Pam said, I think that's the best way to go about it. Just like with anything you learn, you start with small pieces and introduce more, and depending on the child as well. I think the two of you can feel out when it's ready.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you find, again, both of you, do you find that as a parent or as an individual with children or friends that have disabilities, do you think there's a fear aspect in that, asking maybe the wrong questions? Because in some cases we are fearful of saying the wrong things, and discussing openly about mental health, especially, is very sensitive still to this day. Do you think fear comes into factor when it comes to asking, an individual with a disability, like, is everything okay? Because again, you don't want to say okay, because that might mean that there's something wrong. Do you think fear kind of plays a factor in this?
Sure. I think fear drives a lot of the things that we do or don't do, I guess. And I guess it's just being mindful of how you ask these questions. If I'm bringing it up to my sons, I'm just going to say, hey, how are things going? We have so-and-so available to talk anytime you feel the need, let me know. Just, no pressure being conveyed to them. So I think being able to meet with mental health professionals over Zoom has helped with that fear, because you're doing it at home in your room. You don't have to say that I'm leaving, I have an appointment with my counselor or my psychiatrist, if that's a fear. So, there are different things to take that fear away.
Yeah. And Josh, I'll pass that to you as well.
So for me, yeah, I think definitely being able to sit at home and has helped for quite a few people. I mean, there are people that definitely still do like to have that bit of separation there. And then there's people of the other school, right, that believe, being in person is a little bit more important. But
Yeah. And I guess, the more we talk, the more fear kind of subsides, and the more openness we become to these kind of topics. And another question just came in, and again, this is why we're having these conversations, and I appreciate everybody that's asked these questions, and thank you to everyone that has. This is a question that came in. I have autism and I'm in a wheelchair. are there any special ed programs for adults with disabilities? Josh, I'll throw that to you. Do you know of any kind of special ed programs for adults with individuals with autism and then mobile disabilities as well?
I do know of one. It just actually closed through COVID. If you want to give me an email, if you can put my email in the chat, I can certainly check that out for you and have an answer for you really quickly. No problem.
Amazing. And we'll try to make sure to get your email so that that individual can have that, because we appreciate you giving out the opportunity. And Pam, do you know of any special ed programs, or has your sons ever gone to a program that was based around that they found was very helpful?
Well, I think taking a look at some of the organizations on Everyday Heroes Kids, if you can go on and search and see what would come up. I think that was a great opportunity to show what it can do. And there are different camps for different age groups and opportunities, and you really just kind of have to search for them. And the organizations for any specific area are usually the places to look. So I would check that out on Everyday Heroes Kids.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
That is the perfect place.
Yeah, that is perfect. Yeah.
It's awesome.
And I think, I don't know, you were talking about silent retreats, Josh, in our talk, and you were talking about retreats. Is there retreats out there that personally, regarding individuals with, disabilities from all age groups that you would recommend and suggest? Because I know summer is coming up, things are opening back up. Is there ones that we should kind of pinpoint or share with people? Again,
I would have to look offhand to see what's open this season, but I can definitely do that, and I could definitely update you. And if you had somewhere you wanted to post it, we could post a listing for sure.
Perfect. Yeah, because I think the one thing that we are wanting to do with everything opening back up is get out there and to experience new things and to meet people. And I think that's very important, especially with individuals like we all have that, we're struggling through the pandemic, is trying to find ways of entering into the world again and finding those opportunities to reconnect and to rebuild. In some cases, we're all under construction, as I always like to say, we're all learning and growing. And this webinar has been one of those growing potentials. The amount of things that we're discussing here, I feel, haven't been discussed enough. And I truly do believe that we need to do more of these and to discuss openly more about these things, to share the work that Joshua is doing, that Pam and Tamani are doing with Everyday Hero Kids. These are the messages of hope that we need to share. And my thought is how can we do that more? How can people connect with you? So Pam, if people wanted to connect with you, either a personal level or with Everyday Hero Kids, what is the best way that we could find you and connect with you?
Probably the best way is email. It's pamela.asen@gmail.com. I can put that in the chat, but that's really the best way. I am on Facebook and Instagram. I mostly just post things for family, about my children, but I'm happy to connect with people at anytime. And interestingly enough, I am on Everyday Heroes Kids as an advocate for Usher syndrome and the Usher Syndrome Coalition as the ambassador for Canada.
So I cannot, Spencer, I will email you because I cannot put my email in the chat, but I will give you my email. It's probably the best place to reach me. It is joshua@headwaymentalhealth.com. So it's HEADWAY mentalhealth.com, or you can visit my website, which is www.headwaymentalhealth.com. And I'm going to register for your website, Everyday Kids, and you'll find me on there as well. So
amazing. I love this.
And
that's fantastic.
You'll find me on PsyMood as well.
That's right. Yeah, you're on PsyMood, but that's great. Look at that. We just created a connection right here, and that's fantastic. I think that's amazing. And before we go, I would love to give you this open platform to be able to say your final thoughts or any kind of things that you wanted to share, because we are so honored that we had a lot of people attending this webinar. So I would love to give you the open platform to share whatever that is, either an event that's coming up or activities that you're doing, or just something that you would love to share to kind of say bon voyage to this webinar. So Pam, if there's anything that you want to share about something that's coming up, or anything that you're doing personally that you'd like to share, we would love to hear it.
Well, that kind of made me think of an opportunity this summer that myself and my two sons are going to. It's a camp for youth with Usher syndrome. And that camp began actually in 2019, but COVID kind of stopped it. It's in its tracks. So it's finally being held again. And from that really is one of the most important parts of their mental health, is that peer-to-peer support and that mentor and role model support. Because now my oldest will be one of the role models, and my youngest is still a camper, but a counselor in training. But those relationships that you form with people who are like you, and that's truly a place where they can relax and be themselves and not wonder maybe what someone else is thinking, or they don't have the same experiences. When they're in a group of other youth with the same challenges, the same life experiences, there's just a freedom and a relaxedness, that's not a word.
It is now.
Yeah, it is now. To them that you don't normally see on a regular basis. It's just completely stress-free. So if there's anything I could leave anyone with, it's to have those opportunities for peer-to-peer support, for peer mentors, role models. We've heard it a lot. You need to see people who look like you.
Yeah. Oh, very well said. Thank you so much for sharing that, Pam. We do appreciate it. And Joshua, what would you like to share? Events, activities, things that you're doing that we would love to experience or join you with? Please let us know.
I do groups of people with disabilities. Groups are awesome. People can share wins, they can share losses, things that don't work, things that do work. They can talk about new outlets they found, new groups they found. So groups are really special place. Groups are actually usually less expensive options than, if you were to do any other sort of option of mental health. So if you need something that's a little bit less expensive, you could get in touch with me about that. I do hold smaller groups, so there's lots of time for everybody to talk and engage. Yeah, just if you need to get in touch, I'm here. And yeah, now that we're getting through COVID, hopefully, things will start picking up again, and there'll be lots of groups and everything, getting back to normal for people that need things to get involved with. So I'm excited for that, and I'm excited for everybody who came. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you. And, thank you for sharing that, the things that you're doing, the activities, the events. And as a thank you, PsyMood and Everyday Hero Kids wanted to share as well. And so with PsyMood, to say thank you, they're going to be offering a free 15-minute intake session for users to meet the therapist before scheduling the first paid session. So again, this is in the chat, but I'll let you guys know as well if you've missed it. And we're also going to go give a 10% discount on the first 3 paid sessions. The promo code is EHK and the little and symbol, PsyMood, so PSYMOOD. And you can go to the website psymood.com and you can utilize that promo code. You can see Joshua's on there. And with Everyday Hero Kids, they're also offering a thank you. Everyday Hero Kids will offer a half-price code on the annual membership for clinics if they use the code EHK50, so 50 off, OFF. This reduces annual membership from 500 down to 250. And you can go onto the website, which is ehkidshealth.com. It will be on the chat too as well. And I really want to thank both of you beyond words for giving me your time, giving us your time, and sharing your stories. On a personal level, this meant a lot to me. So I thank you very much on a personal level. Thank you for your time on the podcast. Thank you for your time on this webinar. And I'm going to thank you ahead of time for coming back and doing more. So I want to make sure that we're doing more, hint, hint, everyone listening, we want to do more of these because I think that this topic especially is one that we need to continue, that doesn't fall to the wayside, doesn't go under the carpet. We need to bring this to attention. So Pam, Joshua, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your time. It's really meant a lot. Really, truly, thank you so much for being here. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much for having us. It was a pleasure to be on with you, Joshua, and to speak with you again, Ross.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to be on with you, Pam, and you as well, Ross. And I think this is what gets rid of the fear.
Yeah.
Look at that. That is how we should end it. This is how we get rid of the fear, by talking, experiencing, and working together. So thank you so much to everyone that attended. I wish you all the best for the rest of your week ahead, wherever you are, in the morning, evening, or night. Thank you so much. Pam and Joshua, I'm wishing you all the best for the week ahead and the weekend. And I promise we will be speaking to you both again very soon. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and wishing you all a wonderful rest of your day.